And welcome to the Corporate Jet Investor Podcast. This week, we're absolutely delighted to have the one and only Johnny Foster from OGARAJETS. Johnny, how are you?
Good morning, Al. I'm great. Thank you for having me.
It's great to see you in your trademark bow tie. I'd be disappointed. Last week, you were on holiday in the Bahamas. Were you wearing a bow tie then?
No bow ties, but I did have a collared shirt.
Of course you did. Johnny, tell us a bit about OGARAJETS.
Yeah, OGARAJETS is a company that my father, John Foster, founded in 1980 with his partner, Ed O'Gara, at the time. He and Ed flew together in Vietnam and then through some naval test work in the early 70s together. We've grown considerably over the last 45 years, but have remained very close to the core values, our family core values of professional standards and ethical behaviors. And it's been a really great pleasure of carrying on the family's legacy and the core values that my parents taught me as a young man and growing up, and that has stemmed through how we hire and the people that we hire and the processes that we put in place as we represent clients both in the buying and the selling side of private aviation.
How was it growing up in the industry?
It was pretty exciting. I was the only kid on the block, of course, when I was growing up that had a dad that was not only a pilot, but that sold aircraft. We always had a plane to take somewhere if we went on vacation, so rarely did we ever drive. Mostly King Airs. When the business started, my dad had come out of working with Beechcraft in Wichita. And so he really had an affinity for the King Air product line. And so growing up, I always felt like we had our own personal King Air. My brother and I grew up in the back of the King Air playing checkers, and then eventually migrated up front and had the opportunity to fly alongside our dad. And I would say that the bug of aviation certainly bit both of us. David is also in the industry as well with QS Partners. And it's something that has been ingrained and that our family has been known about. It's family businesses are a really special type of business. For me, it's been a real joy to work alongside my dad and now carry on his legacy as he moves towards retirement. He's 82 and still comes into the office just about every day. And not because he has to, but he still really enjoys being around the team and being part of deals and creating solutions for his clients. But there are also challenges that come with family businesses, and it's for those of us that are in family businesses, and there's many here in private aviation. There's a component to a family business that must be navigated by all the family members that you just don't have in a traditional business setting. And, if it's navigated poorly, it really can have some devastating effects on the family, but navigated properly and well, it's richly rewarding. And that's certainly what I have found.
Did you decide you were going to be a jet broker from a young age?
No, not at all. While I knew it, my dad did, I really didn't know what it was about. I was keenly interested in marketing and advertising. If you look at my LinkedIn site, it's a photo of Don Draper. It's actually not me, highlighting the OGARAJETS brand. And that's all I really wanted to do. I wanted to be both on the business side or the account side, along with the creative side. So very much like the character Don Draper. When I graduated in 1991, the job market was pretty sparse. We were just in another recession here. And I eventually ran out of savings very, very quickly, and my dad offered me a role to come in and do research. Research was done a bit differently then. we did have JetNet, and I believe AMSAT was available at that time, but our updates were not live. We had a satellite on the outside of the office, and it would receive streamlined updates, kind of like a spreadsheet, long before Excel. Once a week, we would receive the new listings and those aircraft that sold. And so I started in the research game with a pad of paper, the old school way, and a phone, and just making calls, and then creating these update lists. So there's been some tremendous changes in technology there that has made all of our businesses more efficient and more productive. However, that time in the research department also afforded me the opportunity to sit alongside my dad, watch what sales was really about and what it meant for him. And I learned very quickly that we really didn't have a product to sell. We weren't selling anything. We were a service industry. And he was exceptional at selling himself and excelling the standards that he stood for and his beliefs in professionalism and integrity. And it really resonated with people. And being able to watch him and listen to him for the first several years of my career, I literally just crafted the same letters. We didn't have email then, so these were hard letters that went out, or faxes, and really the same talks with clients when I was in the hangars or walking around with their pilots or mechanics, and really just emulated who he was and what he shared, and it was a natural fit for me, and something that really resonated well with clients then as well as today. We're probably the softest sellers in the industry, and I would say that the vast majority of people that sign engagements with us sign the engagement for an inherent level of trust and confidence that they have in who we are and what we stand for and what we say we'll do.
Your dad is without doubt one of the one of the most respected brokers of the period. When you say he was known for selling King Airs, he had a huge market share of the pre-owned King Air. How hard was it for you coming out of his shadow? Because now it seems like a silly question. Everyone knows you. You're definitely seen as one of the top deal makers out there. But was it hard?
No, he made it very easy for me. There really wasn't a shadow to work within. I'm complimented by that we have largely the same name. I go by Johnny, but John the Fourth. And he was a great steward to teaching me all that he knew and the ways that he did business. And the industry largely was very welcoming. Coincidentally, Al, at the same time that I joined or started with him in 1991, NARA had just started. And my dad was one of the founding members of NARA, which is now IATA. And his founding of NARA, alongside Jack Pruitt and Johnny Gant and a handful of other gentlemen that were and still remain, really legends within the industry today, afforded me a seat at a table with all of these guys that really headed up the industry. So as a 23-year-old kid new to the industry, I would travel with my dad to the NARA meetings. I wouldn't really call them board meetings, but foundational meetings. And I became very close friends with all of the heads of industry. And, so my education in the industry, while it was heavily curated by my father and what he said and what he did in his way of business, I also had mentors in the business, some of the greatest, and the time that I spent with, Jack Pruitt and Johnny Gant in particular, Robert Duncan, was just truly instrumental in me not only understanding what we did, but developing a craft that was conducive to being a professional many years of my age. So I really had an accelerated program, maybe an MBA type program, if you will, for private aviation sales and brokerages.
So talking about IATA, you're wearing your IATA pin badge. So, top marks for being on brand.
That's I was taught that by Wayne Starling. We were almost reprimanded like the old nun in the schoolhouse that would whip your hands with a ruler if you didn't wear your IATA brand. So all of us that have been around Wayne Starling for the better part of a decade have carried them in our pockets to make sure each of our jacket lapels is fully branded.
But it's interesting about NARA is for many years it was the National Aircraft Resale Association, very focused on the US. And then there was a period, probably, I'm trying to think, was it 5, 6, 10 years ago when you took over? And you were one of the people who was instrumental in changing it from NARA to IATA, weren't you?
Yeah, I believe it's Brian Proctor who really pushed the initiative to move forward with IATA along with Wayne. But it was all part of, there was a period of time where Brad Harris, I think the order was Brad was chairman and at Dallas Jet, and then myself for the period of 2 years, and then Brian Proctor at Mente for 2 years
and
following.
I think it was the three of you pushed it through. Brian was there for the final, but you were part of the foundation of it.
Right. And the early part and my push was, how were we going to take NARA and grow it out of its reputation for being for lack of a better word, a good old boys club, and really open up the membership and show that we aren't about a collective group of friends or colleagues that get together socially and really create no value, but bring something forth to the industry that was open to anyone that could qualify for membership, and that stood for the ethical code of conduct and behaviors that the industry is lacking. It's amazing, Al, that the whole reason that IATA or NARA was founded 35 years ago largely stands today. There are many people that are coming in and perhaps that are even current owners that don't have an appreciation or understanding that our industry, for as sophisticated it is and as large as it is, let's call it a $15 billion industry on the pre-owned side, is still, for the most part, completely unregulated and unpoliced. And I'm not advocating that we need regulation, but there's not a lot of oversight for the behaviors of professionals within this industry. Fortunately, the vast majority of the professionals, whether it's brokers, salesmen, pilots, mechanics, consultants, lawyers, bankers, and so forth, they're all, very upstanding professionals. But like in any endeavor, as there are cracks or open doors, there's a lot of opportunity for people to behave poorly. And part of the foundation of NARA was to really set the groundwork for a level of professional standards by which those early members committed to be part of. And we really haven't deviated far from that today. There's a lot more to who IATA is today, not just the international exposure, but foundationally, it really stands for providing a standard of certification and qualifications of its members so that the client or the consumer can have a sense of understanding who they're dealing with, and that they're dealing with a team that is working from a higher ethical and professional standard than perhaps someone else in the industry.
Ethics is something which is really important to you, I know personally, and you've got a great reputation. I'm being too nice to you, but you've got a great reputation for this. It annoys you, doesn't it, that you feel brokers are picked on occasionally in the industry?
It's challenging. I don't know that we're picked on. It's what is, and I suppose it's what any business has to do is justifying their fee, but it is because there are no standardizations, Al, the brokerage industry is quite often relegated to a competition on who who will do the work for the cheapest amount of money. I think for the wise consumers that are buying or selling, they understand that it's not all about fee. You get what you pay for. But I believe that those brokers that are in the race to the bottom and providing little to no service other than creating a transaction do give the industry a bad name, and it makes it very hard for others to justify their fee basis for the services that they provide. I think that's one thing that's hard for the consumer to understand, is that brand X and brand Y and brand Z are, yes, perhaps at the end of an engagement, a transaction is occurring, they're all going about it in a different manner. And the different manner is founded upon significantly different levels of experience, significantly different levels of support within their organization, significantly different levels of transparency and professional standards. So when a consumer goes out and engages a broker to represent them in the buy or the sale of their aircraft, or both in many cases, it's incumbent upon that consumer to really do their homework and make sure that they understand what they are engaging, because an apple and an orange and a banana are all very different fruits. And just because someone calls themselves a broker doesn't mean that they're providing the same service as the next guy.
Do you think it's surprising that there's some, and the last thing we're going to do is name them, but there are some brokers out there who in the industry have a terrible reputation? And, there's some brokers out there who've been sued by clients and had issues. Do you find it surprising how they keep getting new customers?
I don't find it surprising how they keep getting new customers. I find it surprising that a consumer or a buyer or seller of an aircraft who's obviously been successful in life and in ways of business is not able to make an informed decision based off even the most basic due diligence. Al, there's an expression I can't remember, a saying, and I don't know who it's accredited to, but it's easier to fool someone than convince them they've been fooled. And I think that in the area of business where people have the wealth to justify owning an aircraft here, along with that comes a lot of pride and perhaps a little bit of ego. And perhaps they just don't want to admit or acknowledge that they don't know what they're doing, or that they've made a foolish, decision along the way. But it is dumbfounding. It happens every day without addressing, who, is behaving poorly within our industry. It happens so frequently that, yes, it happens frequently enough, Al, that it is surprising. And I think it really goes back to the fact that it's the consumer who has to do their due diligence. And the buyer and the seller of the aircraft, or the consumer who wants to engage the broker, it really doesn't take that much to look into the background of who they're representing or who they're being represented by, and how they work and what they bring to the table. And I would think that just the very basic form of due diligence would provide them all the answers that they need.
If I'm trying to choose a broker, I'm buying my first aircraft, trying to choose a broker, where should I start?
Well, I think IATA is a great place to start, obviously, within the...
I thought you were going to go for OGARAJETS. You get credit for that.
Well, IATA is a great place, and if we're ever going to lose the opportunity of an engagement to someone, we do direct them to IATA. I always encourage anyone that has come to us to make sure that they're doing their due diligence and making sure that they have an alignment with a brokerage firm that represents their interest and their style, and delivers a level of trust and confidence in their team, or to their team, that the broker is going to serve them in a way that they expect to be served. IATA is a great foundation. We have approximately 60 broker-dealer members now that are all certified. And then there's another 100 and, I think we're about 120 product and services members, which are members that support the industry in areas like management, finance, insurance, operations, consulting, and so forth. So, the IATA website has tremendous amount of resources, and there's an entire catalog of brokers there that have been vetted and certified, along with all of their listings. And the accreditations are something that are applied to each of the brokerage firms on a yearly basis, and then their individual brokers in-house go through testing on a 2-year basis to test their knowledge of industry standards and processes and procedures and so forth.
Where do you get most of your new clients from?
Mine, personally, approximately 85% of my business, maybe 90%, is repeat referral. And the referrals that I have from 35 years of working within the industry are like gold to me. If a client makes a referral of a friend or a family member or an affiliated company, we treat them as if they've always been a client of OGARA. And that's perhaps one of the greatest privileges of doing business well over an extremely or over an extended period of time, is the opportunity to engage with clients over and over, a lifetime of their buying and selling of aircraft, but also serving their friends, families, and associates. We have a younger team of salesmen and at OGARA, and they're having to cut their teeth and learn the hard way, on how to develop clients. They're doing an excellent job. The last 5 years, we've really begun to develop the OGARA sales team, and they've become really good stewards of telling the OGARA story. It's a story that people like to hear, not just in 45 years of success, but really who we are and what we stand for, and not just how we do what we do, but why we do it that way. OGARA is very disciplined in our approach to every project. We're very dedicated to our processes and our systems. We take a little bit longer, I think, to execute than perhaps some of the other brokers, but we're not about the transaction. We're about crafting a very personalized experience for a client that satisfies their specific and individual needs, which are unique to every transaction and every client. And when the time is right, determined by the client, a transaction will occur. But we're never in a race to the finish line. We work on the client's timing and support their interest in making sure that they're educated in a way that they can make the most informed decision possible.
What are you looking for when you hire someone to join OGARAJETS?
That's pretty easy, Al. We hire and we fire first and foremost on our core values. And so that's it's not as easy. It's hard to pick up core values on a resume. We don't understand from reading off of where they went to school and how they behave and how they think, what their work ethic is like. Are they aligned to our ideas or commitments to transparency and so we have a very detailed process. Of course, the resume is kind of the door opener, and from that we can measure the basic aptitudes of a candidate, whether it's for research or sales or technical support, marketing, so forth. But it's really when we get into our interviews, and we have a very disciplined process that we go through to help, not to help test, but to better understand the manner in which the candidate thinks and processes the information and responds. And so every Monday we have a whole team meeting. And at the end of the meeting, we run through our core values, which the acronym is legacy. We lead with integrity and excellence in everything that we do. We give of ourselves and serve our clients. We accept mistakes and omit excuses. We collaborate as a team, very collaborative approach. And we yield to the moment and try to remember that the pressures of the moment, shouldn't overshadow everything that we're doing within the deal. We review those core values every single Monday with the entire team present, with team members calling out other team members who have exuded in the last week those core values. So they're very present in our dialogue on a weekly and daily basis. And I believe they're very present in the stories that we share with clients and prospects alike. And that's really one of the core components that really differentiates O'Gara. At the end of the day, Al, all of the brokers and dealers are dealing largely with the same sets, information sets, the pricing, title transfers, transactions, what's available on the market today, what is sold. We all have the same information. And where one broker really differentiates themselves from another is how they are attractive or attracted to certain clients, and it really comes back to their behaviors, their skill sets, and their experiences. And O'Gara is very fortunate to have taken the time to develop our reputation and continue to uphold a reputation that seems to resonate with a large majority of the market. We're fully transparent and ethical in everything that we do. It's paramount to every decision we make each and every day. We're very disciplined to following processes and systems in every transaction. That makes us assured that no balls are dropped. We bring to the table a level of experience, not just in our brand of 45 years, but the collective experience of a team of 25 people that is largely unmatched other than by just a very small handful of other brokers in the industry. And so we have a collective unique advantage that really helps set us apart. And I'm a real fortunate guy to be the steward of leading our brand and leading our company into our 45th year here.
How did you go through the process of drawing up the legacy values?
Well, it really, as I mentioned earlier in our talk, Al, we've always known where we came from, and so the family values that my mom and dad set both in the family and how the business was run in the early days has always been foundational to who we are. But it was a very enjoyable exercise. We sat down in 2018, 2019, and really began mapping out what it was that we did on a day in and day out basis that answered our why. Why do we come into the office every day? And we knew that it was more than to earn a paycheck, but inherently we were, all of us on the smaller team at that time were so heavily focused on, I think, one word, excellence, and that level of that commitment that we had to excellence in everything that we did really became the catalyst of how we started thinking about what our core values were. And none of us on the team, not just me, none of us on the team wanted our core values to just be a shell statement that you see on someone's website. We literally spent, I think, probably close to 12 months before we had it clearly defined what it was that, uniquely powered each one of us and made us want to come into the office every day. And I can genuinely say that, sure, a paycheck is a motivator and we all have to have money to work, but our culture is really grounded in the fact that we're all inspired by a much higher calling than just being part of a career. And I think it shows in that we just have virtually no turnover at O'Gara. And one of the greatest, one of the most exciting things that I have to witness now is the number of people that just call our, sales associates or even research and technical teams and are beginning to ask how can they be part of the Ogara team. And 6 years ago, when we really began to craft this vision for the new company, that was one of the markers that I had when I thought that we would know that we had begun to reach this success. When our story was being told outside of our office, and we had people calling us asking, how do we become part of your team? And it's not just people randomly that are outside. These are, people within the industry. And to me, that's the ultimate compliment, to our team and what we do and what we stand for when people are recognizing it outside and wanting to be part of it. And that's pretty exciting.
It is. And the reason I asked you about the values, because it's either really easy to come up with a list of values or it's really, really hard, because anyone can reach for a thesaurus and go ethics and, integrity. But that's really interesting. How do you forecast your business? Because one of the things I love about brokerages, and you've got an example of this, is you do a good deal for someone in one country, or you give a good service to someone in one country, and then he gives his friends, and before you know it, you've got amazing market share in, and I won't name which country, but, you suddenly have, 5 or 6 clients there. How do you forecast what you're going to do each year?
Forecasting is challenging. It's, we work really hard at polishing our crystal ball and looking into it as much for the future as what we have in the past. And so I would say arguably, Al, the majority of our forecasting goes from performance standards that we set for the team in growth measures that we'll have year over year. So using history as a gauge, we know for each of our sales agents, their conversion rate and how we have to continue to coach and cultivate their growth, especially the young guys year over year, to increase their conversion rate to make it stronger. And from that, we know we're good estimators on how many transactions each one of those new agents or agents within the team can convert year over year. And so from that, we have a pretty good idea as to how many transactions we will complete. Typically, our estimates, even though we're forecasting 2 to 3 years out, we can build our financial models within plus or minus 10%, even at 36 months out. We've been very, very disciplined in how we make those estimates. Of course, we always like to exceed it. But again, we're not racing to do more transactions. We're carefully building largely a very young team and creating their growth and their development as young professionals in a very specific and disciplined manner. This year, we will, I think on our forecast, if I'm not mistaken, is about 60 transactions. So we're certainly no way in one of the largest in the industry. We probably fall somewhere around, I would suspect, somewhere right around number 10 from a transaction throughput, where we're representing either the buyer or the seller. And but again, my objective is not to be the biggest. We're not going to compromise our standards in a race to do more transactions. I just want to continue to craft and develop the very best team and the very best brokerage experience in the industry. And we're very critical of ourselves for every transaction that completes. We have a offboarding or a debriefing within the team. We do a deep review of what went well, what went wrong, what we could have done better, and how do we fix that in our processes. And so I'm not planning on retiring anytime soon. And so I have all the time in the world, as far as I'm concerned, to continue to lead and craft a team that's going to be around for another 50 years. I won't be here in 50 years, but I'm confident that we're building a company and a brand that can.
And do you want to keep? It's important for you to grow, though. You don't want to stay still. You think it's good for the company to keep growing.
We have to. Yeah, I think if you're staying still, you're always moving backwards. And so, there's two types of growth, Al, and that's the growth in the development of the team from a professional standards and experience standpoint, and then the growth financially and experientially from a transaction and revenue standpoint. And they both really kind of go hand in hand. But to me, I'm working on building a continuation of a legacy of the Foster name that ties in very closely to the O'Gara name, and something that I will either leave my kids who are not in the business, or this group with me that has been working so hard for the last decade plus to really grow our brand. Perhaps it'll be something that'll be left for them.
Would you like your kids to be in the business eventually?
Well, I would love it. I think it'd be the greatest honor in the world. At this time, it'll always be their choice. There'll always be a role for them. We have 3 children that are all out of university already. They're all gainfully employed and pursuing careers in fields that they're passionate about, and to me, that's most important. The decision, if they were to explore O'Gara, would be a great honor for me, but I want it to be on their terms. There should be nothing that feels forced or expected of them. And at this time, they're very content in exploring careers in very, very different fields. And, they're successful, they're paying taxes, they're happy, they're healthy. And, I don't ever want O'Gara to be viewed as an obligation or even a crutch to any of them.
How do you split your time between, you're obviously passionate about running the business, but I know you've also got, you like getting involved in transactions, you've got customers you've been dealing with for years. How do you decide where to allocate your time?
I still really enjoy traveling a lot. I'm 200 plus nights a year on the road. I have an amazing team in Atlanta that from a transaction standpoint that really facilitates the heavy lifting of the transaction. I'm still I think I will forever be an advocate of handshakes. There's just incredible value that comes from whether it's a long-time existing client or a new prospect, to be able to shake their hand and sit down at a table and really ask discerning questions and understand what their needs are, what their expectations are, what their experience is, and what they're trying to solve for. And those just really are hard questions or hard answers to really get to the root of through an email or a text message or even a phone call. And so that's one of the components of our sales process, if you will, that we're really instilling with these, with our team, is to get out and be present, be in front of your clients, shake their hand and tell them, share the O'Gara story with them face to face. And I don't know that that's anything, Al, that I'll ever be tired of. Yes, I'd prefer to sleep in my own bed at home, but I'm really good at being on the road and developing those relationships with old and new clients alike. And I just don't think that that's something that will ever leave O'Gara. And I think that's something that really is another one of those differentiators that separates us with so much from the industry. We always want to be present, whether it's our sales team or our data team or our technical team, in front of our clients and supporting them in a face-to-face manner.
Some people listening to the call will be going, there's no way I could spend that much time away from home. Some people are going to be listening to this going, they've watched Steve Pisano, they want to be a broker. What advice would you say to someone who wanted to be an aircraft broker?
I would say that I think Steve does an excellent job in his Instagram post in showing you what all is involved. I mean, he makes it look very glamorous, and not just because he's a handsome dude that dresses well, but he.
So are you, Johnny?
Yeah. I don't walk down the street talking to like he does in London on his Instagram post. But I think one thing that resonates with everything that Steve is showing there that perhaps gets lost in some of the glamour of those short little snippets is that really to be successful, you've got to be incredibly engaging. You have to enjoy solving problems for people, creative solutions. And recognizing that largely this role, because it's an international scale, is a 24/7 job. Let's just say that for all of us that have been doing this a long time and have been successful, our clients typically expect or are typically granted 24/7 access to us. And at the end of the day, as we discussed earlier, we're in the transaction space, but we're really in a service industry. And our commitment to serving our clients has to come on their time. They're not the clients that we deal with are running large enterprises and or enterprises that are incredibly important to them, that they spend their time during the days focused on running their enterprises. And most of the time, or much of the time that they have to allocate to understanding what's going on in a transaction or contemplating a move from a mid-sized jet to a large jet is in the middle of the night. And it's not lost on any one of us that have been in the industry long enough that we take the calls from the clients when they call, and we have to meet them on their ground and meet them on their time. So when they're ready to talk and they are engaged in that moment, we have to be prepared. The other thing, Al, is that because it is such a relational sales game, transactions don't come quick. And so for new entrants to the industry, it's not like learning a product and going to work for a factory or a manufacturer that you can just pick up the phone and start taking orders from people or waiting for the phone call to ring. The vast majority, if not almost all, of our transactions occur through the development of relationships. And these relationships are largely built upon trust and a foundation of knowledge of each other. And they just take years to develop. And so for someone new coming into the industry, especially someone that is young and has grown up in a world of technology and expecting things to happen almost instantaneously, the development of relationships and the development of a sales process that could take them 1, 2, 3 years to really begin to see any type of success and earnings of commissions could be really frustrating. They're going to have to be patient. They're going to have to be willing to invest in themselves. They have to be humble and recognizing that the answers aren't easy, that emotions run high, that we're dealing with a very specific client set that expects things to be done well and expects their representatives to be incredibly knowledgeable on processes and systems, and expects their brokers to solve problems for them that, man, every single deal, Al, is unique because every personality in the transaction is unique. And so we're not putting out fires, but we're solving issues. And if we're really good, we're anticipating issues and solving them before they become problems for our clients.
What do you do when you're not working?
When I'm not working, my wife and I, Laura and I, spend a lot of time hiking. We love the outdoors. We hike out in our west in Colorado and Idaho, Montana, a good bit. I still have time to play golf some. I wish I had more time to play golf. I'm still a real passionate steward of our business, and I work on the business as much as I work in the business, and I really enjoy that component of it. The long-term visionary thinking, so a lot of the time that I'm on the trail, unfortunately, I don't ever get too far away from the business. That's my time to really decompress, perhaps from the deal flow that day or week, and thinking about where are we headed, where are we going to be in the next 1, 3, 5, and 10 years. And then, we have the opportunity with 3 grown kids. They don't have families of their own, so we're still fortunate that the kids still love to meet us when we travel some, and they're very active as well. So we're a family that hikes together, that really enjoys time in the mountains, that travels abroad when we can, and those are very, very precious times for us still.
You've already told us how an aircraft buyer should choose a broker. What other bit of advice would you give to someone buying an aircraft for the first time?
I think I'm confident they need to be disciplined in how they select their team. When a client engages OGARA, we have an onboarding meeting that within the first 3 days, and our entire team, which encompasses data research, technical, marketing, contracts, and then sales. We meet with them, and we want to understand who they have on their team from the legal standpoint, both in-house and outside counsel, what financial requirements they'll have, insurance, management, how's the plane going to be operated, if it's going to be private or commercial, who's going to be operating the plane for them. We want to know about what their experience is in the industry. So I think one of the most critical aspects to finding a successful transaction is early on establishing, not only knowing that you have a team that's established together, but to make sure that the team is all aligned in understanding what the objectives of the client are. So we will try to bring in all of their team members as well, and assure that everyone understands what our role is, what their role is, and what the objectives of the client are. What's the aircraft that they want to buy? Why do they want to buy it? Does this make sense for the management team? Do you have crews that can operate the plane? Does this make sense for the finance team? Is this an asset that you're willing to finance? Is there anything that we need to be prepared for ahead of time that could delay the contracting or the closing of the aircraft based upon its age or its make and model and so forth? As much as we can answer on the front end with that developed team, the higher likelihood we have for delivering on a smooth process going forward, or a smooth transaction experience for the client. So, it's really, really important now that it's not just the broker. It's all of the professional engagements that go along with the broker that add to that experience. And one misstep along that way, whether it's a misalignment or not having the right professional representing that aspect of the transaction, can really create inefficiencies and even disappointments in that process. And if we do our homework and we build the team correct, or we cultivate the team correctly from the start, we have a much higher opportunity for delivering the right experience to the client.
Do you have any regrets about not going into advertising?
No. I still get to do a lot of it here. I put on my creative hat some. I'm not as creative as our marketing teams, but I do have the opportunity to share my vision, and I still have a pretty good eye for details and messaging and so forth. So I still get to play it that way. But I wouldn't trade a role in advertising. I wouldn't trade a role in any other career for what I have today. It's been a real honor to grow up in a business alongside my dad and the Foster name. It's been as big an honor to lead the company now for, I've owned the company now for 12 years, and really developed my own brand and my own shtick, if you will. We didn't tread too far away from the original name, OGARA Aviation Company, in keeping OGARAJETS, but since 2013, this has really largely been my vision. And that's been an exciting part about learning to be a business owner and really setting the vision for what I want the business to achieve and to stand for. And I'm proud that a lot of it still stands for what we have in our foundation, and just as much of it stands for this exciting future that we're planning for ourselves.
Johnny Foster for OGARAJETS, thank you so much.
Thank you, Al. I enjoyed the time.
Me too. That was great. Thanks so much.